you doing? Happy Wednesday, America. Have a mint. Now, we all know the story of the boy who cried wolf. I'm assuming you're old enough to have read that story before it got canceled for animal cruelty and transphobia. Now we're in the middle of a similar fable, the media who cried Trump. Ever since that guy came down his escalator and beat Hillary Clinton like the rented mule she is, the media has treated him like Hitler times 9/11. Ooh. Which is weird because unlike Hillary, he didn't kill anyone. You know the hoaxes, Russian collusion, the P-tape, Nazis are fine people, let's drink bleach, the moon landing. And according to the media, the walls were always closing in. We got him this time with tweeted Hollywood nitwits like Rob Reiner almost every week. You know, when the only things closing in were meatheads' arteries. They staked their reputations on bringing him down, and if America had to fall to bring down the Donald, they were cool with it too. But now Trump gets arraigned and the media can't turn up the volume anymore. They already went to 11. They already blew out their speakers. To use a common biblical phrase, they already shot their wad. That is biblical. Leviticus. Now they're finally getting what they want, but it's hard to care. And they failed to see that they gave Trump the weapons to fight back by accusing him of so many things that turned out to be false. So now, do supporters care? Do they listen? The Dems finally think they landed the great orange whale, and it turns out they're the real Moby Dicks. I mean, who believes them? They lied to and insulted almost everybody. And those that keep at it, they seem weird, like a stalker.
The response that we've seen in polling from Republicans suggests that they're going to stick with him, that it's more of a cult than a political party at this point, and they're going to stick with their leader.
Hillary, you want to know the prime symptom of a cult? When the cult leader exploits his power to have sex with nubile followers. Yep, he was the original crooked. So I've heard. Look what Trump persecution fatigue has done to CNN. They once had a decent reputation, but now they're like Will Smith at a comedy club. They have the smoking gun, but they're amazed that the bullets they're firing only bounce off.
We watch Donald Trump attempt to turn his arrest and indictment into some sort of campaign commercial. We need to remember that the reason we are watching this is because Donald Trump is accused of breaking some very serious national security laws. The folks in the control room, I don't need to see any more of that. He's trying to turn this in. He's trying to turn it into a spectacle, into a campaign ad. That's enough of that.
Yeah, CNN did enough of that. I have total respect for Jake Tapper, but why does his face always have that look like he's walking behind Gerald Nadler? Sorry, Jake. But you want the worst? How about those who do not intend to carry these remarks live?
We do not intend to carry these remarks live. As we have said before in these circumstances, there is a cost to us as a news organization to knowingly broadcast untrue things.
A cost? I seem to remember when Untrue Things was her nickname.
The presidency is effectively a Russian op. We're about to find out if the new president of our country is going to do what Russia wants. This guy Kalimnik keeps turning up again and again. Konstantin Kalimnik, he's still Russian military intelligence.
If you subtracted all the untrue things from that, this is what you'd have. And yet, she's a respected gatekeeper of information. So what's Trump have to say? Well, last night on the eve of his 77th birthday at his golf club at Bedminster, Jersey, he slammed Biden and called the indictment a heinous abuse of power before eventually discussing the boxes. I wonder, did the boxes have all types of personal belongings? Many, many things, shirts and shoes and everything?
These boxes were containing all types of personal belongings, many, many things, shirts and shoes and everything.
Fair enough. But I wonder if he hadn't a chance to go through all the boxes because it's a long, tedious job.
I hadn't had a chance to go through all the boxes. It's a long, tedious job. Takes a long time. which I was prepared to do, but I have a very busy life. I've had a very busy life. They make it more busy because you're always fighting.
True. We all have busy lives. Maybe Biden can use that excuse to explain why he forgot he had classified docs and a granddaughter.
Fire.
Yes.
Great fire.
And you know it wouldn't be a proper Trump event if he didn't come up with a new nickname for someone. I wonder, is the prosecutor in this case a thug?
The prosecutor in the case, I will call it our case, is a thug. I've named him Deranged Jack Smith. I wonder what his name used to be, Jack Smith. It sounds so innocent, doesn't it? Jack Smith. What's his name? Jack Smith. He's a very nice man.
That does sound nice, doesn't it? But is he behind-the-scenes guy, and is his record absolutely atrocious?
He's a behind-the-scenes guy, but his record is absolutely atrocious.
Later, Trump actually handled DJ duties playing tunes from his iPad. Hits included Blue Suede Shoes and Hound Dog by Elvis. Maybe future set lists could include It Ain't Me, Babe by Bob Dylan, or MC Hammer's Too Legit to Quit. Or maybe Jailbreak, that might be fun. But the sheer fact that he's having fun reflects the way the world is to him. A video game where he meets the challenges as though it's a game. It might be incorrect, but it works. I wish I had that frame of mind. And the next time I'm in court, I demand the same sketch artist Trump has. I mean, look at that. I'm sorry, that guy has to be on Donald's payroll. He makes Trump look like Tarzan went to Brooks Brothers. Look at that jawline. So now what? Will Trump be the first ex-president to go to jail? And will Carrie Lake bake him a cake with a file in it? Will Joe Biden be in a cell next to him? That's if he's even still standing upright by Election Day. Or will President Kamala laugh like she's doing whippets every time she's in public?
And to my Divine Nine family.
I don't know what she's laughing at her record, I guess. It's all pretty weird. The charges sound real, but it's clear their importance is being inflated. And why? Because they can't say what they're really doing. That the Democrats are arresting a political rival. That's what it is. They're taking him off the table after targeting for years. It's funny, Joe Biden suggested he'd make sure Trump wouldn't be running again.
We just have to demonstrate that he will not take power if he does run, making sure he, under legitimate efforts of our Constitution, does not become the next president again.
Remember that? Yeah, he didn't say beat him in an election. He said make sure he doesn't run. I guess this is what he meant. Let's welcome tonight's guests. She was a woman in men's locker rooms before there were men in women's locker rooms. Host of the Michelle Tafoya podcast, Michelle Tafoya. He's not a baker. They call him that after he killed a man with a loaf of pumpernickel. Former CIA operative Mike Baker. The odds of keeping her quiet are like her dress size, extra slim. Fox News contributor Kat Tim.
Here we go.
There's a severe weather warning in the Northeast, or maybe he just sneezed. My massive sidekick in the NWA World Heavyweight Champion, Tyrus. You know, Mike, it's always good to see you, but we'll talk about that later.
All right.
The thing that bugs me about this whole story is that I think we're all exhausted by this whole thing, and we all want it to be over with, but that's the strategy. And I resent the strategy. I resent the fact that the strategy is to run people into the ground, whether they're Trump supporters or Republicans, so you just say, give me DeSantis. I can't deal with this crap. And or I don't know what it is, but they're trying to run us down.
Yeah.
And I sometimes feel that it's working.
Well, I think you feel that way because it is working. Look, the Democrats do messaging very well. They stay together and they stay on message. And, you know, they've kind of been given this gift because honestly, what Trump has done is a self-inflicted wound, right? And he's had a series of those over the years. But by that, I mean, he didn't have to be in this position. Right? This is not a difficult thing to not hold on to classified documents when you leave office. I mean, I know there's others have done it, but then just hand them over. He could have stayed out of this mess. And
You should have gone in there and taken them.
I should. Well, we took some, and we have some under the seats of everybody here tonight as a parting gift. But I think the problem for President Trump, or former President Trump now, is going to be that all this noise, as you pointed out, this constant drumbeat now, is going to remind all those voters who didn't vote for him in 2020, but previously had in 2016. And in 2020, they were tired of the chaos, right? I'm talking about whatever you want to call them, suburban moms or moderates or whomever. 2020, they were tired of the chaos. The only reason Joe Biden won is because he wasn't Trump. But I think the problem he's got now is because of what's happening, he's reminding all those people, again, of the chaos that constantly surrounds his presidency. And I think they're going to look and go, yeah, I really don't want any more of that.
I think in one way they might be reminding them of the chaos, but also reminding them of the energy and the fun. You know, Michelle, I often feel that when they're going after Trump, they always talk about the supporters. I always feel like it's a proxy for American voters, or half of them, and they made them the proxy by calling them deplorables. So I think that's the thing that I'm feeding off of, is that it doesn't really matter if it's Trump. It could be anybody. They just don't like us.
Well, that's definitely true. But I do think his supporters are continuing to support him because they are tired of this, and they see this as an unequal application of the law. Lois Lerner, Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, we could go on with people who have alleged wrongdoings, and we don't hear or see anything about it. Joe Biden has documents in his garage and everywhere else they talk about, and oh yeah, we'll get to that. We'll get to that eventually. There's no urgency to that. And so what the Trump supporters sees, and what they voted, why they voted for him the first round around, is what the hell? Like, why is there this disparity? Why is there this uneven application? And I'm going to stand by the guy who's getting persecuted here. Whether he is or not, whether he's guilty or not, they see him as a political martyr. And they want to stand with him for that reason, because they're sick of all this other crap in the swamp.
You know, I would like to think, Kat, that if the shoe was on the other foot, I wouldn't do this to, like, Joe Biden, because, you know, I don't want to arrest a president. I think it would be wrong. But I don't think I'm that good of a person. I think that if we get through this, arrest Jill Biden.
I was going to say that does.
Fake it. She pretends she's a doctor. You know, oh, Dr. Jill. That's it. What kind of degree is that? I don't even know. Arrest Jill Biden. Yes, applaud. I want this in the news.
Oh, no.
Oh, the headline, Kat.
Yep.
Fox News audience applauds arrest of Jill Biden.
There we go.
I want that.
Let the record reflect, I'm sitting here looking unimpressed.
Thoughts?
Thoughts. All right. Well, I mean, he seems to be doing okay.
Yeah.
Like, my baseline anxiety is way higher than his indictment anxiety.
That's amazing to me.
It is, but I mean, okay. So for this indictment, which I've seen a lot of legal experts, including ones who are more conservative, say that this one presents a lot more problems for Trump than the Manhattan one does. However, to your point, I don't think that most people really know that, because they have all of this fatigue of all the other times that these things have been overblown. And to be perfectly honest, I wouldn't know that if it wasn't my job to read this stuff.
Exactly.
I wouldn't be coming home from my long, hard day of charts and graphs, or whatever other people with normal jobs do, from what I have learned from television. There's like a computer, there's graphs there, and then they go like this.
It's pretty much
an architect.
That's what my husband does, investment banker. That's just like charts and graphs and a headset. Hello, the models, the Q1, whatever. I don't think most people are using their spare time to really look into this. So I think a lot of people, whether that's, regardless of what it says, they don't really know the difference. They think this is just happening again, because that's what's been the case every single other time.
Yeah.
So I don't know where it goes. What I do know is that if I think I'm tired now, oh boy.
Yes. Yeah. All right, Tyrus. Bring us home.
Men can't be careless. We just can't.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, and here's the cold part. It wasn't like President Trump was carrying the boxes out the office himself, loading up the truck and having Eric and then put it in for it. And Ivana wasn't driving it. Like this is poor staffing. There's a staff guy somewhere going, man, I thought it said declassified, you know. But the ugly thing is, and today I was on a Falker Focus, and I noticed that the things that they hate about Trump, that President Trump is rude, he makes fun of people, he goes after people. They do the same thing at a higher level, right?
Yes.
They nonstop do it, right? So I brought it up. I said, where's the decorum, right? Where's the high ground? Where's the teachable moment for the Democratic leaders over this indictment and stuff? And I had the biggest troll attack ever because they wanted to bring up everything that Trump has ever said. Well, that was supposedly what you stood against.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what you were there. So here's your opportunity to show. You're worse than him because he's honest. You claim to be these things, but you're not. And the thing with the indictment, if they do get to a chance to, they're not going to stop. But at the same time, he cannot stop running for president. He has to see this through, even if he's in a jail cell.
Yeah.
He has, and it has to be Republicans that decide it's over with him. If the Republican Party goes with DeSantis, it needs to be done by us, not them. So you stay in it till the end.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.